What's up, dads? Your boy Big Dave here with another episode of Culture Dads, Age of Sword and Cassette. Mr. Mike, what's up, bub?
I'm doing all right, Dave. But we're both coming off a guest spot on different nights on Millennial this year. That was pretty exciting. It was great to watch you rip it up there, man. People really responded well to that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I've been trying to get on Millennial for quite a few years. And it was just, for me, it's like kind of like a cool thing because, in our spheres, Millennial is like the who's who get to go on there, and the up and comers and the fresh stars and the OGs, and it's kind of like our award ceremony or something like that. So the fact that I finally got on there, it means a little something to me. And shout out Mr. Millennial Woes and all my boys that are going on, and it's just and your show kicked ass too, bro. It was like you got there's going to be a lot of guests that talk about how bad the situation is and all that kind of stuff. And you just came in and you're like, oh, well, no, we're winning. We can win. We're winning. Let's do it. You can come in with practical stuff, these fresh analysis on society and like everything, and coming at it from a folkish worldview. It was just dope. I thought your episode was great.
One of the funny things is that we just got straight into the propositionality stuff and the particularism. I was not I did not expect that we're going to talk about any of that stuff, but I don't know. I guess just the way somehow we just segued into it naturally, and it was just right off the bat and everything. So that was pretty cool. But I genuinely think that in the near future things are going to get tough. We're going to go through a dark age, but we're going to come out the other side of it, and our grandchildren or our grandchildren's grandchildren or, our folk in the not terribly distant future is going to win. So I genuinely believe that. That's not a cope. I don't just say that to make guys feel good. It's the truth. So it was cool to get on there and actually be able to drop a lot of truthful white pills. And I think people respond to that. So, yeah, that was great, man.
And I think, speaking of Dark Age, and this is kind of going to go into our topic for today, but when I think of our coming Dark Age, I think it's probably going to look a little something like those mid to late era Soviet bloc countries. You know what I mean? The ones that had food shortages and things just stopped kind of working. Trust kind of broke down, and there was never really a full fall over collapse. It wasn't barbarians charging through the gates of Rome. It was more kind of everybody's just sort of fuck this place. The lights stay on most of the time, and I think that's sort of going to be what it is. They're going to maintain our creature comforts. The stores are going to stay open, but there's only going to be very limited options. They're going to be pretty expensive. McDonald's is going to stay open, right? We're still going to have internet. Video games are still going to come out. The liquor store is going to stay open. And
hell yeah.
The internet's going to be there, but it's going to go out once in a while. And that's going to be our dark age, is this kind of still vaguely maintaining creature comforts that people sink further into as society just kind of slowly becomes more retarded. Yeah. It's gonna be here's the thing with corruption, in my view, is the days of toppling your ruler and lynching him up and parading his corpse through the streets, or chopping his head off and lift up his head. Everybody cheers. Those kind of days I think are over. It's just democracy has created this monstrous system where corruption is just the standard, and just it's like a revolving door of corrupt vampires. They come in, be corrupt for a couple years, and then they just fuck off, and it's just this air, this cloud of corruption that's over the whole thing until somebody comes in and burns it all down. And I think that we're going to be in that. We're going to be like the guys in the Soviet bloc countries that are like, yeah, fuck them. And we just go about our shitty everyday lives, getting pleasure out of creature comforts. And, maybe my take on it is pretty miserable, but I just,
I was going to say, dude, I think yours is a little bit, it's a little sunnier than mine. Mine would even be. Really? I hope it's that good, because I think our people are going to go through some serious times, some serious hardship. There's going to be a bottleneck. There's going to be a population bottleneck, and the future is going to belong to people who build things like folkish kindreds, church groups, that kind of thing, mannerbunds, small social circles that are self-reinforcing and all of that. I think that's what's going to rule the day in the next 100 to 200 years or so. Because I am not. I mean, I was dropping white pills, but these are long-term white pills. I think in the medium term, we're going to actually see a severe devolution, and that this is not going to be a pleasant thing at all. And people are going to die. So, it's a gray pill. It's a mixed white black pill, I suppose. But the takeaway from that is that it's time to start building right now. Right now is the time to start, start your family and build your extended kindred, build your extended clan, build your support network, because when the lights do start to flicker on and off, and then shit really kind of hits the fan, that's when you're going to wish that you had practical skills and guys that have your back, and maybe some property somewhere out of the way. So that's I mean, we're kind of drifting into another topic here or whatever, but it's I think we're in for some hard times, but we will make it through. Our folk will make it through. And on the other side, we're going to see something very cool come out of it.
Yeah, I'm going to lead in the topic here, but you mentioned about a bottleneck. I made a video about this. It got like horrible pushback some time back, but I made the argument. It's like, there's 70 million. You touched on this before. There's 70 million of us. Technically, for us to like hit a genetic bottleneck, we need to like go down to like 50, 100,000, 200,000, like really, really small numbers. And it's going to take a long, long time for us to get into that. There plenty of populations have hit that genetic bottleneck and bounced back. There's plenty of cultures, ethnic groups that have been in the bottleneck for like centuries. You know what I mean? So it's,
or gone down to like 300 people or something.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. I think, there's a lot of, like, for example, here in America, it's kind of the sleeping giant. The Amish have the highest birth rates of anybody by far. There's like it's like they call it the Amish bomb. It's happening. Like they're like taking over huge swaths of land. They have on average like 8 kids. We're looking. There's actually a YouTube channel called Masa Man, and he talked about the Amish, and he said on trajectory, if the trajectory is right, the Amish will be the largest ethnic group in America in 100 years or 150 years or something like that, like by far. So it's like, and then also you pointed out, and I pointed out this in one video, is that these foreign people that come into like the liberal world, they get neutered, they get unicized in one generation. They come in
very
like 5
bad
kids, and then their 5 kids all have 1 kid, and then all of those kids have no kids.
Yep, that's exactly right. I posted a Substack article a couple weeks ago, and I just recently unpaywalled it because guys were like, "You've got to spread this further. This is like a extreme white pill." White pill by comparison, because it's basically saying that like white people are going to maintain their birth rates comparatively, whereas minorities in the first world and third world people are cratering, just fucking cratering. It's ridiculous. They're like, if you look at the if you take current like decline in birth rates across the various like ethnicities or countries or nationalities. It's like people in Pakistan who are right now somewhere around like 5 kids per person or whatever, at the current rate at which their birth rates are declining, people in Pakistan are going to hit 0 birth rates well before Americans do. I mean, when I say are going to, I mean, like, this is just extrapolating the current trends, right? So I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that the current trends are that they are dropping like flies, and Americans are dropping too, just as everyone else in the world is, but much slower. So, you know, if these trends continue to play out, this is a comparative advantage for our folk. So yet another reason for optimism, you know, in the zero-sum game, I guess, of like, you know, global hegemony or whatever. There's a lot of balls up in the air right now, basically, is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of things that could happen, and there's a lot of things that are happening. Like, it's crazy. Like South Korea, the birth rate is something like 0.8 children per woman, which is absolutely just like, they're fucked. Like, it's just ridiculous. China, also very low. I won't go into, just read the article. Go to imperiumpress.substack.com. You'll find the article. It's called "The Third World is Going to Cop It," and I think they will. I really do, because, you know, the bottom line is that these people have, like, liberalism is like a smallpox blanket that they're not used to. It's like the natives of the New World getting alcohol. They're not used to it. They're going to be absolutely demolished by it, whereas we have had centuries to acclimatize ourselves to it. And this is going to help us. This is going to be a advantage for us. So it's crazy. But anyway, there's a lot of things, a lot of crazy trends going on right now. I'm trying to find a way to like bring this back to the topic, but there you go.
Yeah, I got it. But yeah, so I'm going to lead into the topic right here. So and to touch on that, and another trend that's really interesting is the COVID trend. There's something that happens, and this actually coincides with other depressions. There was a small depression in the 70s, and then obviously the Great Depression here in America. And during those periods of time, birth rates like blow up. You know, there's this phenomenon of COVID babies, right? I had a COVID baby. You know what I mean? Like we had COVID baby. There's this huge explosion of babies. And what this signifies is that during times of economic downturn, times where people fall into their creature comforts, they don't like it, and they're not focused on their careers and work, and there's not a lot of prosperity. What do? They bang their wives. That's what they do. So they have lots of babies. And in my prediction, when we go into this time of creature comfort, I think we're going to see a lot our birth rates go up, because what people are like, fuck this place. I got nothing. I don't got to prove my work ethic. I don't have to, fuck the American dream. I'm just going to bang my wife and drink beer with my boys and like grow my garden and play video games. And I think that video games are an important thing for us to like start looking putting our sights on. Not just because it is a huge industry, which it truly is. It's to give you guys, I got a little pushback in the chat last night on Millennial when I was talking about video games. There's like a couple haters that, they're like, fucking dick off with video games. So let me illustrate this to you. Video games are the most widely consumed media in the world, period. Like there's not even a close second place. It's crazy. In the United States, there are 214 million video game players. We have a population of like 350 million or something like that. Like 2/3 of all of Americans play video games. How many Americans? That's like 20 times how many Americans vote. That's like 10 times how many video Americans go to the movie.
2 and 3 Americans, and that counts all the babies and all the elderly people and shit like that too. It's a massive medium.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like this. It's like the absolute biggest territory of art form or media or whatever you want to call it, that people consume, and we're just like completely ignoring it. You know what I mean? And on top of it, video games have changed a lot over this time, and people are starting to fall out with video games. These big, which for many years, AAA companies after the 90s going into the 2000s, AAA countries or AAA companies ran the industry, right? You had your Blizzard, your Ubisoft, your Activision, EA, Electronic Arts, BioWare, et cetera, et cetera. These guys were like the big dogs, and there was no knocking them off. Well, these guys are like hemorrhaging money, and just like what we're seeing in the publishing industry, in video games, we're starting to see the rise of the indies. I don't play a lot of video games, but I play a decent amount of video games. I like to play at nighttime before bed or whatever. So I play maybe a few hours a week. Video games, sometimes more. If I find a game that I like really love, I'll play more than that until I beat it. But I play overwhelmingly indies, and these indies that I'm playing are like really cool, and they embody philosophy of games that I was like adored back in the golden age of video games when me and you were playing them when they were coming out, right? When the magic was invented, right? That is what these indies kind of embody, because they're not poisoned by the philosophies of these AAA companies who are just trying to cash in. Like, let's face it, it's $150 billion industry. It's like more than Hollywood. You know what I mean? So these big companies, they're just like, there's a lot that goes into it, what these AAA games do. But before I start ranting about that, Mike, back when you played video games, I'm not sure if you play anymore now or at all, maybe a little bit, but I do know that you feel that the old games were better than what they are now. What was the experience with the old games that you loved so much more than new games?
Yeah, well, I don't really play games anymore. Once in a while, I'll do some Minecraft because I can kind of get the kids into that a little bit. You know what I mean? But not. We don't do it very often. They don't actually even really like video games too much. But so that's like the most modern game that I really play. So I mean, and I played a fair bit of Nintendo Wii back when that was kind of a thing, but even that was like there was a drought between like say the early 2010s and when I really was a video game fanatic, like in the mid 90s, like up to the mid 90s. So basically it kind of ended for me around 1995 or 96, basically when the PlayStation came out. That was like kind of when I got away from it. So my takes on like what video games are like now, or like, what makes older video games better than newer ones, are kind of fossilized in this like late 90s. Like I still think of new video games as like what was going on in like the late 90s and early 2000s when I started to hate them. But I would say that what makes like newer games of whatever era we're talking about here, what makes them inferior to the older games is that they kind of don't have this X factor that you call replay value. You know what I mean? Like I found that it wasn't like as addictive, and that it wasn't, I mean, it was more immersive, but it was the kind of thing where I would just get bored of it really, really fast, unlike something like, Street Fighter 2 or the Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest series or Super Metroid and things like that. Like these games had a lot more sort of replay value as far as I was concerned. And what's interesting is I find that they're actually somewhat less immersive for me, even though it's like there's a lot more graphical horsepower behind it and everything like that. There's it's visually much closer to a movie, which is, I think part of it is that I don't like CGI. This kind of makes it kind of hard for me to grasp onto it. And this is part of what I like about Minecraft. I like that Minecraft has the 8-bit aesthetic. It doesn't try to be realistic. It's stylized. I really like the fact that it's not realistic, but it's stylized. There's something, I think we've kind of talked about this before. Like there's a mythic quality to things that don't try to be too 3-dimensional, so to speak. So yeah, and this sort of leads me into like another critique I would have about newer games, which is that they tend to over rely on graphics. I find that this is really like it's kind of like a band-aid to cover shitty gameplay or like game mechanics and things like that. Like it's hard for me to think of examples or whatever, but I just remember playing a lot of the games sort of in like the PS1, PS2 era and just being like, yeah, okay, I don't know, it's whatever. It looks nice, but it's just not interesting or whatever. And a lot of these games are much, much too big. They're just too ambitious. They want to be too many things to too many people, right? And very often it ends up being too much like a movie that you play. And then I guess the last thing I would say about like what's wrong with new games is something that is just a function of the time. There's all this censorship and they're paused with like a retarded ideology and everything like that. So that's, I mean, we could hardly fault developers for that. I mean, they're responding, the big, like what did you call them? The AAA companies, they are beholden to things like ESG, so they have to keep their ESG score high. This is basically like an economic measurement of wokeness, and it's very insidious. It's a topic for another time, but basically these companies have to keep that score up like a credit score if they want to be able to attract funding. So they have to be woke, and this is really unfortunate. But to kind of like talk a little bit more about like on a positive note, what I like about old games is number one, this is kind of a function of video games being young at the time, when I was playing them, very much more sort of like towards the beginning of the life cycle of this medium. They were kind of weird. They were kind of experimental. Some games were just their own genre. There was like these weird like one-offs and stuff like that were just kind of their own thing. And there was a lot less sort of conscious effort to be in a genre. Like, this is not to say that there weren't genres. There was fighting games, there was role-playing games, there was action games, there was action RPGs, there was like SimCity type games and all this kind of stuff. Of course, there was genres back then, but there was a lot less focus on that. I think there was less sort of like focus group kind of like designing the game with a genre in mind kind of thing. It was just like, here's an idea, let's make this game. And it ended up like that. A lot more of the games were very unique and experimental and kind of weird. Another thing that I would say that I like about old games of this era was this, and we've talked about this in our second episode that we did on the RPG, which is that there was a lot of creativity that came out because of the constraints. This kind of ties into what I was saying before about that games are too big now. And I think because they're too big, they're a lot less creative because, and this sounds kind of paradoxical, but if your canvas is every imaginable color and every imaginable texture and every imaginable everything, then it's you very often you end up with something very less interesting than something that's constrained. The other thing I like about old games is that they were harder. They were in some ways harder. They kind of let you figure shit out for yourself. I still remember banging my head against the wall for hour after hour after hour trying to figure out how the fuck to advance in Dragon Warrior 1 in this one part. And there was just like one stupid thing that I was missing or whatever. But back in the day, I mean, they had like strategy guides, but you couldn't just go on and get an FAQ on the internet. You had to actually do it. You had to actually plow into it yourself, right? And, you know, games were also kind of unfair in a way that's like kind of hilarious today. And I think it's actually like people consider it to be like bad game design, but it's also like invests you in a way that like you don't get if the game's a little bit more fair. It's like if you die and you, like I remember the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first game for the NES. That was such a fucking hard game. If you die, it's like you start over, and they just made some of the levels so fucking hard. I think I only got to the end boss to fight Shredder like one time, and it's like by the time you get to that point, you're just sweating buckets. Your hands are like twitching with anticipation, and like this I just have not had that experience in a long time. Games are a lot more linear back then, which is in some ways kind of cool. And also, you know, this is something that you don't really get anymore. It's just, they were plug and play, right? You could just plug the game in, play for 10 minutes, have fun, and get on with life. Nowadays, games are more like, they're kind of designed to suck you in for like hundreds and hundreds of hours, at a time, or, you know, for hour after hour at a time. It's like, yeah, sometimes I just want to like play a bit of Minecraft and just zone out and then turn it off, you know? So yeah, I mean, I guess like that's a whole battery of different things that I would say about the difference between old and new games, but I think that characterizes what I liked about the old ones.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You mentioned hard games. Do you remember Contra, the game Contra?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that thing was impossible. I actually recently played a ROM version of it, and I was like, fuck this. I can't play this game. I was getting so frustrated.
They're hard, man. They're all
so
like
hard.
that too, like Ninja Gaiden, or
man.
Like there was this one game called Solstice, which was this like 3/4 overhead like adventure / puzzle game or whatever. And I remember my buddy and I played it for like a solid 4 or 5 hours, and we were like, fuck, we must be almost done. And then we paused the game, and for some reason, I guess it just tells you like what percentage of the way you are through the game. And it was like 12% of the way through. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, like, it's just ridiculous how hard some of these games were in an unfair way. Like Mega Man, it's just all of them. You could just list all of them. They're all the same. And it's in part because of the limitations, right? Because you couldn't have a game that was spread out over 6 discs or whatever. It was just like a little cartridge. So if you're going to actually have that replay value, if you're going to have a game that's like fun and that you're playing for more than 2 hours and then you're finished it, it's going to be hard. And that's how they designed it, to give it that replay value back in the day.
Yeah. Balance was not something they cared about back then. And
no.
This is something that's also found in, it's like all modern gaming, modern game development, whether you're talking tabletop or video games. They follow this principle called UX, or user experience. And user experience is just like, in my opinion, just complete bullshit. Some of it's legit, like you got to have some visually appealing things and interface appealing, and like there's some things to it that are true, but pretty much
people have to like it, right? Obviously, it's you know, that part of the experience has got to be good, but
But UX. They actually hire like UX specialists, these AAA companies. And what these people are, this whole philosophy was actually built by like psychologists and stuff like that. And we all know that psychology is mostly fake and gay. So they bring this idea of what they think players want, because a lot of these like game designers aren't like guys like us, you know what I mean? They're not us. They're people that are in the corporation. Some of them don't even play video games. Now with all of this, they're just hiring these like women that like, you know, they just started playing games like a couple years ago so they could prove that, you know, girls can be gamers too, or like whatever. So that they don't have like this like pedigree of growing up with playing video games and understanding what the philosophies that went into making Final Fantasy, you know, 5 so great, or versus Contra or going into like, Doom, or like they didn't play these like OG games and then transfer into the 2000s. And, they don't have this timeline in their life of like playing and seeing the evolution of games. And it's just, it completely crushes it because they want games. They just thinking, well, games need to be easier so they can be accessible to everybody. Yeah. And this whole philosophy got blown the hell out, this year. I'm sure everybody saw the clip where that weird foreign kid goes up and says at the Game Awards, he says something like, he's like, I'm going to dedicate this to my Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton or something. I don't know if you saw that. But
no, I didn't. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, there's this. They did the Game Awards, and the game Elden Ring, which I'm about to talk about, got like the Game of the Year award. And it was at the end of the show, and this like just random weird little like guy. He's like this short. I don't know what he was. I guess he was Hispanic. I don't know. Poofy hair. Just like comes up to the mic unexpectedly. All the Japanese guys, the developers, like looking at each other, like, who the fuck is this guy? They go completely confused by the situation. And he just says out of the blue, I'm going to dedicate this to my Reformed Orthodox Rabbi, Bill Clinton. And then like there's some like awkward, like confused claps. And like that was it. That was the end. And he got arrested.
Was it a troll? Was he serious?
He's just trolling. He just
all right, yeah, he must be.
It was speculated that he was an agent of Kanye because he was wearing the Yeezy sneakers. So I don't know. It was weird. But anyway,
but like the guys don't have their, they don't get their I'm trying to find the right phrase here, but they don't work their way up the ladder. You know what I mean? Like if you like, because I think even amongst the industry, video games are not considered as legitimate a form of art as are like writing or movies and stuff like that. It's like if you go to film school, you're going to be expected to watch some art house shit from the 50s and 60s. You're going to be expected to know this. You're going to be expected to know the history of film. You're going to expected to be able to converse about and understand the historical, milestones in this medium. Whereas I think if I'm just speaking from the outside, but I expect what it's like is that video game developers it's perfectly fine for you to, come into the medium and have only played games for the last 10 or 15 years and not know fuck all about what happened in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
But that's a mistake because it's the same kind of mistake that you would have if you were if you were a director, but you had never watched fucking, The Godfather or anything like that, like these classic films. I mean, these things were made in a different time with a different style and a different with much less technology, but they're able to do some pretty intense stuff. Even just the original Sim City game still holds up. I've got a ROM of it on my computer, and I fired it up a year ago or whatever. I'm like, fuck, this is still addictive. This is still great. That's the kind of thing. It's if you can't design a game like that, then what are you doing trying to design Final Fantasy 97 or whatever the fuck they're up to now? You got to kind of you got to kind of work your way up is what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I would say I don't know. I never went to video game college or school or whatever, but I would be pretty shocked if they had a thorough course about the history and lineage of video games and all the great developers. You go to art school or film school, you're taking an art history course, a thorough one.
Yeah.
You're going to learn about all the stuff. You're going to learn about the statues in Mesopotamia and Greece, and you're going to learn. You're going through it. Same thing with film. You're gonna know who Francis Ford Coppola was, and the guys that preceded him, and the silent films of the 1920s, and they're going to teach you all of this, right? You're going to watch Shadow of the Vampire and James Dean movies and all this kind of stuff. I don't think they do that in video game college. So you got a lot of guys that just go in that literally just have never played. I actually, you know, I'm not gonna name anybody, but I've worked with a few guys that are video game devs that are, you know, Zoomers, not the dunk on Zoomers, but have like never played Diablo, like never. They have like a degree in video game development. Like, how do you never play Diablo if you're a video game guy? Never played Dynasty Warriors, never played the old Warcraft or Starcraft, never played Final Fantasy, like never played anything outside of just like Nintendo games. Like the earliest games that this guy remembers is like the Wii U, right? He played on the Wii U. You know what I mean? Like that was like I guess they had like a Super Smash Brothers for that. So that was like his first game he ever played, was like the third iteration of Super Smash Brothers. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic take. I don't think these guys like learn the lineage and have to go back and play and like learn this stuff. So what happens is you have this this philosophy. It's almost like what happens in like fantasy stories, right? With fantasy books, where you have guys that don't go back to the source material. You have these fantasy writers that are just building off of what the previous generation of fantasy writers wrote. They don't go back and read history. They don't know about the source material. Like these are guys that, you know, I mean, they've never read Iliad. They've never read any sort of like treatise, like that was at the Silver's treatise on weapon craft or sword fighting or wrestling. They don't know how medieval people lived. They don't know how medieval warfare worked. They don't understand like the religions or the world views, right? I think it should be before you write a fantasy book, you should have to read something like Ancient City, what you guys put out, or Iliad, or like whatever. They don't have this. So coming back around to what I was saying with the that ceremony, the video game thing, and Elden Ring, this game Elden Ring, which came out from Software, which is like I guess like an imprint, a studio attached to Bandai Namco, and they're Japanese guys. And this game Elden Ring, yeah, it's like a big AAA game, but it broke a lot of rules, and there was like a lot of like developer backlash. Developers from Ubisoft and Activision were like talking shit on this game. Like, this game sucks. They don't follow any of the UX, the user experience principles. How is nobody's gonna like? How do people even like this? This looks like shit. Because some of the graphics are a little shitty, right? They don't go all in with the graphics look cool. They're stylized, but they're not, you know, whatever. And it's not a balanced game. It's a game where there's no hand holding. There's very few like quest beacons. It doesn't like you are kind of just like thrown into this world. Monsters are hostile. They just attack you. You just be walking and a dragon flies down and just scorches you with his breath, and you just have to run for your life. You know what I mean? There's like it's like a Dark Souls kind of game where it's like you go and you have to like, there's bosses that are just so immensely hard that, you know, if you didn't prepare for this boss or grind and level up, you're done. Like, it doesn't adjust to your level. You're just fucked. Yeah. Right. So they were like outraged that this game has this kind of stuff. Right. And also there's no microtransactions. There's no DLC. It's like the full game as is. You get it, you play it, and like that.
Oh, that's the worst. Fucking like I haven't had to ever deal with that, but I think if I did, I just put my foot through the fucking PS8 or whatever the fuck now. That's retarded. Like, just I want to buy the game. I want to have the game. I don't want to dick around. I don't want to have to like sign in. I don't want to have to like pay extra for like whatever. It's like I just want to buy the game and be done with it. This is one of the things I liked about old school games. Is just plug the cartridge in, you hit the button, you start fucking playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why can't we do that anymore? Like, do we not have the technology?
Yeah, it's like these modern video game developers, it's like we mentioned before, it's a big cash grab, right? And part of the reason they do these cash grabs isn't necessarily just because they're greedy. It's because their overhead is so ridiculous that if they don't do this stuff, they will go out of business. They will, like, it'll be a huge failure. It's like these like Hollywood movies that they're making that are like hundreds of millions of dollars and shit. You know what I mean? It's like if this movie isn't a just absolute smash success, you've just like bled out millions upon millions, unfathomable amount of money. The video game industry did the same thing. And when it started to really get big budgets, instead of like following the course and continuing to do this stuff, they started to make games where they have entire warehouses that are full of like motion sensors, and they got everybody set up in these green screen suits and started to like we want to make. Well, we have these like they're hiring these actors to come in and like really do the shit. And they do their facial movements, and they make sure that their action sequences, their roles, they use body doubles. Their roles look so realistic and everything. And your average gamer just does not give a fuck about any of that. It's overproduced, overpolished, ridiculously expensive bullshit. It is just a bunch of nonsense. And this is the reason that they have to add things like microtransactions. And, you know, when it comes to DLCs, like you come out with a game and like everybody like fucks with the game and they're like, we want more content. And you're like, okay, here's a couple DLCs or whatever to like give you more levels or more characters or whatever. And if they're affordable, they're not like, buying the game all over again. Most people will go for it. Nobody's going to complain. Here's the thing with anything that you create, it's called the rule of cool. If what you make is cool and it's not like ridiculously expensive, people will fuck with it and they won't complain, right? The difference between like, and here's another thing is a lot of indie games use what's like pre-generated assets. Like they use art, like video, like characters and 3D models and stuff like that they just buy off of the store and use it, because creating those things from scratch is like such an undertaking. It's so expensive, takes a long time. So they just buy stuff that's already pre-made and they'll just like modify it. They'll change the colors, adjust little things. And they what's it called? An asset. There's this thing in the indie games, especially computer games. They call it, I believe it's called an asset swap, right? Where there's these games out there that literally just buy pre-made like game. What are they called? Like gaming systems or whatever. I can't remember what the word is.
Engines, or is that it?
No, it's something, right? They pretty much buy a game that like has the most of the game there already, and then they add in pre-made assets, and then they just change the name of it and throw it up and sell it. And they call this an asset swap because it's just like, it was a big scam. So now a lot of gamers, like if they find a game and it has art that they notice it's from another game that they've already played, this is an asset swap. But there's like a difference. There's tons of games that use entirely pre-made assets that the people just like love, that have overwhelmingly positive reviews, and people just love it. And this game's great, and they don't say a damn thing. It's because of the rule of cool. With the difference between the game that they accuse of being an asset swap and the game that they love is just the game that they love is cool and fun. I mean, the rule of cool trumps all. But
it's like you can break the rules if you know what the fuck you're doing, right? Like, or if what you're doing succeeds. And this is something, a piece of advice that they give to writers all the time, which is that before you break the rules, before you go out there and you be a special snowflake and you're your own floofty-doo writer that doing your own stuff that like, breaking all the conventions, you need to understand what the conventions are. You need to understand why they're there. You need to understand why you're, supposed to, why people have been doing things forever. It's actually a kind of like recapitulation of the idea of Chesterton's fence, that it's the old idea that before you get to rip the fence down, you need to be able to explain why it's there in the first place, right? It's basically a traditionalist kind of view, and it runs through the idea of things like kill your darlings and all this like writer's advice that you get, which is that before you break the rules, you need to understand why they're there, kind of thing. And I think that this is probably somewhat similar to what you're saying here, where it's like these games that break the rules. Like, I forget what the one that you mentioned before about where there was the award ceremony.
Elden Ring,
but I'm sure that this one, even though it broke a whole bunch of rules, that there was just some very solid kind of like gameplay mechanical basics that were in place that people really liked. And because it had the basics in place, because the designers probably knew what the hell they were doing, they were able to take these chances and to do wacky shit. And they didn't have to like hire focus groups, and they didn't have to like, get these like, millions upon millions of dollars worth of like rendering and actors and motion sensors and all this. That shit didn't really matter because it's, because the game is just fundamentally a good game at its core. And this is the kind of thing that people miss when they don't actually play the older games, when they don't sort of like know what it is that works about, like, why is Mega Man such a great series, especially the first like 3 or 4. And, same with Final Fantasy, the list goes on. Well, it's because these guys do the very basics right. We talked about this in the fatherhood episode. It's something completely different. If you don't have the basics down, it doesn't matter all the ritzy titsy shit that you add on top of it. It doesn't matter. And it's just sort of masking what's fundamentally a flawed game at its core.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's when it comes to like, so I wouldn't say that these guys, Elden Ring, like tried to do something like really crazy and experimental. They just sort of ignored like all of these modern rules that they've made, right? The modern rules, in my opinion, that have ruined video games, this user experience philosophy and like all this kind of stuff, instead of just making a game that's fun for the sake of fun, or like being a writer that's trying to just like I talked about last night on Millennial, your first job as a writer is to be entertaining. Your first job as a video game creator is to be entertaining. You are an entertainer. You know what I mean? And I would actually say, guys, I read tons of books. There are books I read that are nonfiction. And this is something that I feel very strongly about with nonfiction, especially modern nonfiction, is there's a lot of modern nonfiction that is just a fucking snooze job. It's like, how the fuck do you want people to read this, dude? There's no human quality behind it. Mike, this is why I like you, when you write your articles, they're very big brain. You tackle these really big ideas and but you it's very human and interesting to read. It's entertaining to read. You give idioms, you give anecdotes, you use slang in there. Like it feels like a human being wrote it. And I think I feel very strongly that before a writer, period, because there's at the end of the day, whether you're writing nonfiction or you're writing fiction or whatever you're writing, you're still just writing. And that needs to be interesting. And a lot of these guys, they've never read fiction. They've never read poetry. They don't have those chops. And because they don't have those chops, their writing comes off as just like boring. And that is the last thing you want to be with anything that you do. And what happens with these modern games is when they follow this UX philosophy, they create things that are too balanced and too easy, and
it kind of sucks the life out of it, doesn't it?
Sucks the life out of it. I recently tried to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is a huge AAA game from Ubisoft, because it's a game where you get to be you're in ancient Greece. You get to have you get to roll around on a trimeme ship with a crew, and it's like you're in ancient Greece. You're a hero in ancient Greece. Looks cool. I went and picked it up and played it. I stopped, like I was like a quarter of the way through the game. I couldn't finish it because every enemy that comes hunting you, they give you an alert and let you know where they are, what their mood is. Every quest is a fetch quest. You know what I mean? The world is just absolutely massive, and the fetch quests and just even the main quests, it's like it just shows you exactly where to go on the map. So you just kind of like mindlessly follow these markers back and forth. There's all these cut scenes and stuff. And there's actually a pretty cool story behind it, but I just found myself not giving a fuck about the story because the game was so boring. It's like this big, empty, mindless, gay game. I just fucking hated it. And the controls are just so like retarded and complex. There's just too many buttons that do too many different things, and it's just not fun. And I don't know. Some people thought it was fun. Me personally, I thought it was not fun. And I'm not like a grognard completely. I do like some new games, but I come from the era of old games, and I just think that this did not nail it. This game sucked balls, and I don't know. That's just my vibe. So when we got into creating Grimurth, I was like, that stuck in my mind. I do not want to make a game that's even close to that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this game, but I can imagine, I think there's a strong analogy to be made with music where, especially myself, like having produced music and produced other bands and stuff like that. It's very easy to kill a performance by doing something like editing the drums to a grid and auto-tuning the vocals, and then chopping up the bass, and then moving it around to where it's like perfectly in sync with the drums, and then there's no like push and pull of the tempo sort of shifting and getting more accelerated during the chorus and then laying back during the verse. None of that stuff, right? Like you could absolutely just, like I said, suck the life out of a performance by conforming to the rules, right? Like doing exactly what you're supposed to do, what you're told that you're supposed to do, to make everything sound perfect and in tune, and like everything's, all the harmonies are lined up and all this shit, right? It's a good way to absolutely destroy a performance. So I think there's an analogy to be made here with this, like conforming to the diktats of the UX gods, who come in and say, look, like, people don't like it when you do this, so you've always got to make it like, easy for them, no grinding, and that, everything's got to be sort of like moved forward at a very snail's pace, like it doesn't get super hard all of a sudden or whatever, like this kind of thing. I don't know. That's less exciting to me. That sounds very boring. And, I can't imagine a way to make a game uninteresting quicker than to make it so that there's no rough edges around it. You know what I mean? Like this is like, again, for the musical analogy, like it'd be like listening to Nickelback versus something like, I don't know, Death from Above 1979, which is this wicked Canadian punk metal duo. It's just like so raw and so off the hook, right? Like they're never going to be in the top 40, but they are so much more interesting. And I think there's something kind of similar going on with, you got to take chances, right? And me, Dave, like, my musical taste. I like weird shit. I like guys that take chances. And I just haven't seen much of that in video games for a long time. I don't really want to lean on the one thing that I know too much in modern video games, which is Minecraft. But, that's something very different. The guy who designed it, the developer, basically, I mean, I know he had like, what was this game, Dwarf Fortress or something that was the sort of genre he was going for. But really, I think Minecraft was kind of a thing unto itself. It was almost like its own genre, I guess, right? Like sandbox games did exist, but this one did it in a very different way. And because it was so unique and so different and so well done, it just became this thing that's like, I don't know, is it the biggest video game of all time? It's got to be. It's got to be like close, or it's got to be up there with in terms of sales and success and everything like that, because it's just its own thing, like there's nothing like it. And that's what makes something great. That's what makes great art is just being utterly unclassifiable. And this is what that does. And I think that conforming too much to the UX, rule book is a way to suck the life out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Too safe. And here's the thing. It's like, when you are sitting at the top like that in like a AAA industry or anything, right? When you're sitting at the top at a corporation, they're just trying to make the safest buck possible, right? They're not coming from the bottom where it's like, okay, we have to create something that's just unique. They're intoxicated by their passion for their vision. They just want to do something that, it's not coming from the heart. It's not coming from a place of like, excuse me, I don't know if I want to say desperation, but it kind of is. If you are just a no-name indie game creator or a musician or whatever, you're like, I got to do something that's just out there, something fresh, something
you're kind of hungry for it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you're putting out your debut album or something.
It's got to stand out for you to be noticed. So it's like this combination of needing to be noticed with passion and authenticity and, you know, your heart and love, instead of just like a committee of corpo vampires that sit around and say, okay, these are the statistics and blah, 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 blah. And they end up just like forgetting everything that makes something good. And they're reaping the benefits of that now, that a lot of their games that are coming out are just hemorrhaging money. Go look at like EA Sports. You know, their Madden games are just getting worse and worse and worse, and people hate them and are buying less and less and less, and they're losing tons of money as they're putting more. They think throwing more money into it is going to make it better, and it doesn't. On top of it, you know, you mentioned the woke stuff. People don't want to see a Black Lives Matter banner on Madden, 21 or whatever. But it's like, are you ready for some football? Black Lives Matter. It's like the most fucking corniest shit. And I think that that red pilled a lot of people, not to like overuse that term, but that like red pilled a lot of people on how like fake and gay and corporate that was. Right.
Yeah.
It's like Black Lives Matter, sponsored by Doritos. I mean? Racial equality, brought to you by EA Sports in the game. It was it's like I had my friends that like brought it. They're like, what happened to like Revolution is not supposed to be televised or whatever. This is like more than televised. This is like corporate sponsorship. I was like, yeah, it's because it's fake and gay, dumb. You know what I mean? So they picked up. But either way, going back to video games, yeah, man, we're on an hour already. I guess we I don't know.
I don't think we've moved past the first talking point we wanted to hit.
So I guess we'll just real quick go into some of the aspects, the elements that made video game characters cool. Because here's another thing that I found in a lot of modern games is they don't really have lovable heroes, and they don't really have hateable villains, right? It's just like in all modern storytelling period, where there's just the bad guys aren't that bad and the good guys aren't that good. So it's like, I guess we could tie this into my game Grimurth that's coming out, but there's like a few character archetypes that I really just like love, and I want games used to nail, right? For example, you look at the Final Fantasies. Just about every one of those Final Fantasies had a really badass, relatable main character, right? You go back to the OG shooters. The OG shooters, first, what's the first one that comes to your mind? Duke Nukem. Like Duke Nukem was like so big, the character lines, the stuff that he said, his demeanor, the games, it was raunchy and rowdy and vulgar, and just like it was like locker room shit. You know what I mean? It was like that was a game for the boys. That was for the bros. You know what I mean? It's like nobody kills my chicks and lives. You know what I mean? It's like it just had that vibe. It was just, I don't know. I just thought it was great. The Doom Soldier, right? There's just so many. And then the characters in the old fighting games were just fucking interesting and unique and had their own vibe, and they invoked different archetypes, and some of them had like new ones. You talk about Street Fighter, right? Street Fighter and Primal Rage and Mortal Kombat, and these characters are memorable. I could probably name off the top of my head 10, 15 Mortal Kombat characters. Not because I did play a fair amount of Mortal Kombat, but it's not really my main game. I just remember them because they were just so cool. You know what I mean? They don't have this anymore. They're very forgettable, modern, bland characters, just like it is in the movies. They're just incapable of creating really hateable villains, because their villains are effete and boring, and they're not like embodiments of evil. They're not really super geniuses. They're just kind of like these like impotent, spoiled white men that have outdated views and have no limit to their cruelty, and there's not really any rhyme or reason to their motivations. and this sucks, and this is gay. And I wanted to, when we started making Grimurth, I just wanted to, completely go against all of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, good storytelling is good storytelling, whether it's in a video game or whether it's in a book or whether it's on TV or whether it's in a wrestling match or something. It's the same principles at work. And I think a lot of times, I mean, what's happened in the last 5 to 10 years is that ideology has come in, and now it's a moral lesson that needs to be learned. This is a didactic exercise as much as it is entertainment, and that just is, people don't want anything to do with that. It's transparent. Nobody is under any illusions as to what that is trying to convey when every bad guy is like this very pale sort of like character that is just basically sort of like anti-white or whatever. Like, everybody knows what's going on. And a lot of times, I won't talk so much about video games because I'd be talking out of my ass. I think you'd probably be in a better position to talk about this. But just like, whether it's modern, like, series on Netflix or watching movies or anything like that, it's basically the same because the cultural zeitgeist is all coming from the same place. They have trouble writing good characters because the characters are... They're meant to convey a moral lesson, first of all, but second of all, people are just bad at writing because, frankly, they don't read the classics. They don't read great, and I'm not just talking about stuff like Iliad and Beowulf and Dante and whatnot. I'm talking about stuff like, Lord of the Rings and Dune and things that are much closer to our time and place. Like, Lord of the Rings has some beautiful characterizations, and you're very much invested in the characters, and they're well, I wouldn't say human because a lot of them are not human, but like they are three-dimensional. Like, you really get a sense of who they are and everything. And one of the things, as you mentioned, that people do that like modern writers do very badly is writing villains. Not only are all their characters Mary Sue's, their protagonists, but their villains are just cardboard cutouts, right? People are not really that motivated to see that cardboard cutout villain angry and lose. And that's what the point of a villain is, to make you hate him. Not just to be like a avatar of like everything that your gay ideology is against. It's actually to make people in their gut fucking hate them, right? And it's making compelling heroes and villains is something that, of course, it's an art, but it's a lost art in some ways. Like, a lot of times, it seems like the writers in like a Netflix series or whatever will just like choose an archetype and just make that the archetype, rather than to choose an archetype and fuck with it slightly, which is really what you're supposed to do. Or it's all the same ridiculous, the protagonist is like a single mother, like ass kicking, what's the word?
Girl boss.
Yeah, exactly. Like the action girl or whatever, and it's just so tiresome. And very often, I find in modern storytelling, the characters don't really have their own voices. So you'll watch. I can't think of too many Netflix series because I watch one episode and I turn it the fuck off. But all the characters have the same voice. They're all sort of like, gritty and rough hewn, and none of them is at all vulnerable, and they've all had a difficult childhood, and they're sort of, you know what I'm talking about? It's all the same. It's all the same kind of voice that they have, and it's very boring. So I guess, like, if you want to make a compelling character, whether it's a hero or a villain, one thing that, because I used to actually be part of like a writing group where I was writing like fiction, and it's kind of cool. We'd like get together and every week or every couple of weeks or whatever, and it would be like, write 1,000-word short story on here's the topic and go. You know what I mean? So we'd write the story and then bring it the next week and then critique each other's work. And it was pretty cool. And one of the things that I learned from that is if you want to design a realistic character, one thing that you can do is that you can design it around somebody that you know. Now, obviously, you don't want to make it a carbon copy of this person because that's kind of creepy and weird. But like, you know, take somebody that you know from like public school or whatever, and then tweak it a little bit to fit the story, and you're going to have a much more three-dimensional character, right? Characters need to have an internal life. They need to live their own lives. They need to have a sort of drive. They need to have a driving need or an ambition or a goal. They need to have a vulnerability. They need to have a contradiction in their character, right? That makes them interesting. Maybe they need to have a secret. Like this is all the kind of stuff that you can use to make three-dimensional characters. I'm just not seeing that very much in modern storytelling, and it's just dull all day.
Yeah, exactly. There's kind of this among modern writers, modern storytellers. There's this thing that fuck, that's a self-insert. It's like if you go back in time to all the great fiction writers, pretty much all of them, their greatest protagonists were self-inserts. Conan was Robert E. Howard. Robert E. Howard self-inserted himself with Conan. You know, pretty much every protagonist in Lovecraft stories were like a version of Lovecraft. You know what I mean? It's like every great storyteller did this, not because they wanted to jerk themselves off, but because who do they know better than themselves?
Yeah. It's right what you know, right?
Yeah, it's right what you know. And, people pointed this out. My character that I write that people like, Lucius Lex, he's sort of me. It's like, I wanted to create a guy. I wanted to create a character, a hero that now obviously he's not like me. He's different. He's got qualities that I don't have, because he's his own entity, right? But he's sort of based. He's like his base DNA is me. He's like me cranked. He's got all my best, all my worst qualities, all cranked up. I wanted to create a hero because in real life, like growing up, seeing guys get into scuffles and guys whipping ass in bar fights. It's very rarely do you see this big, like this perfect physique, ripped Jupiterian guy with a chiseled jaw and like MMA skills and whipping ass at the bar fights. You very rarely see that. What you see is some big barrel chested Bubba fucking scooping guys off their feet, dropping them on their heads and knocking motherfuckers out. Guys with big hands that are, aren't usually the prettiest guys. They usually got a barrel chest. They got a belly. They got a strong back. They got work boots. They're just like big, husky working boys. Those are the dudes that kick ass in bar fights all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're big and strong and usually like don't give a fuck if they get in trouble. They're not scared of nothing. And those are the guys just kick ass, right? I can name off the top of my head like 10 dudes I know that are like that. And I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'2", whatever. I know a bunch of these guys that are like that I wouldn't want to square up with those dudes. They're just fucking big and strong and mean and tough. They're just like built. They're built for labor and to like punch people's faces in. And like these are the kind of guys. So I wanted to make a hero that was like that. Not because I wanted to subvert the beautiful Indo-European archetype or anything like that. Because I wanted to make a guy that people believe can kick ass, right? I wanted to make a guy that physically looks like somebody that is like, this guy is a fucking wrecker. You know what I mean? This guy tears ass. And I that's what I did. I made a big, husky, kind of ugly hunchback dude. He's got the personality of somebody that has seen thousands and thousands of horrible. He's a little bit traumatized. He's he's just like what an Ubermensch in a dark world would look like, in my opinion, right? So so that's what I created, and he's sort of me, right? He's got some of my phenotypical traits and stuff like that, and I just think that he's probably the best character I ever made, right? It's not to jerk myself off and put myself in stories. It's just to create something that I think people can relate to. That's real dynamic, and this is something that's in villains too. So when I create villains, and we could talk about the villain in Grimurth. when I created the villain in Grimurth, one thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to create a villain that you actually believe is scary. This is do you remember we did our episode talking about like animation? We brought this character archetype up quite a bit, right? We talked about it in Ninja Scroll, that one bad guy in Ninja Scroll that has the wires and everything. You got the Necron from Fire and Ice. This is what I call the Great Sorcerer archetype. So I took all of these characters that fit into this, and I threw in Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII and Thulsa Doom from the Conan the Barbarian movie.
Right.
Mixed all of these guys together to create this villain that I want to be. It fits into this archetype that I call the Great Sorcerer. And the Great Sorcerer is this character. They're generally very tall and slender. They have a big, imposing frame. They generally have long, like, hair. They're generally very fair looking. Now, obviously, James Earl Jones is a black guy. He's not fair. But, they gave him blue contacts so he could fit in better with this archetype, right? But, like, look at Necron. Look at Sephiroth. These guys, they both have white hair. They almost look albino, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost uncanny because they have this angelic look about them, which like adds to this is a figure that I need to fear, because fairness implies being well bred, and it also implies power and authority. You know what I mean? So when there's a bad guy that has these traits, you're like, oh fuck, this is somebody we should look out for. And on top of it, just maniacal, genius, a little bit f***y. All of these things on top of one another to create a bad guy that is like, fuck, this guy, like, we got to like assemble the whole. And, another thing that I base him off of is the human form of Sauron. Sauron in human form, if you go look at the depictions of him, a lot of people only think of the depiction from the movies, but in the books and in the Silmarillion, Sauron in human form looks like the most beautiful of elves. He has long, straight, beautiful white hair. He's very fair, bright blue eyes. He looks angelic, like the perfect human being, but he is obviously a bad guy. So when you take, and Darth Vader sort of fits in this too a little bit. He's a little bit different, but Darth Vader fits into this insofar as he was the chosen one, right? He was Anakin Skywalker. He was the perfect guy. He was the most powerful guy. What did the Star Wars 3? You were supposed to bring balance to the Force. You were supposed to be the chosen one. And it's like, oh no, this guy who is the greatest, supposed to be our hero, the guy, the chosen one, has fallen to darkness. And now this brings great fear, because now the guy that was our ace in the hole, he was the most powerful motherfucker, he was supposed to lead us to victory, is now our enemy. And that sucks. So we're in trouble now. So I wanted to create a villain that is like this, that you fear him, you respect him out of fear, and you like want to overthrow him because I don't know. That's just what I'm. Go ahead. I've been ranting and raving.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. What's the name of the villain?
I named him Necron.
Okay, yeah.
After Necron.
Naturally, yeah. No, that's awesome. There's something to there's something that just kind of trips your reptilian brain stem when you see a villain that's noble as well, that has a nobility, or like as you mentioned, is well bred. Like, that is something that is absolutely terrifying. And this is something that is lost in a lot of sort of like modern storytelling, is the idea that the villain can be someone that is above you. You know what I mean? Or at least above the norm, because who is our archetype for the villain today? Well, of course, it's Hitler, and Hitler is depicted variously as being closeted gay or just maniacally insane or stupid. And it's just like it's just basically like every insult that you could kind of like throw at somebody is.
It's like, how can he be both though? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's right. Like, how can you basically like, achieve all the things that were achieved in this time and place, and be stupid, and also be make bad mistakes, like stupid strategic mistakes, and be like, somebody that has a short fuse, and so on and so forth. It's like it's just not a real character. It's well, I mean, he's a real person, but he's been turned into a caricature, right? Whereas if you have a kind of like a degree of respect for the antagonist, then this makes it very much more imposing. And it's you also want to have it at the same time where you want to see this guy get pissed off and then suffer when he gets defeated too, right? So it's, yeah, like you kind of have to have somebody that is has a little bit of an elevated position that they can fall from, and then watching the fall is satisfying, right? If there's no fall, if you're just basically fighting against a worm, as our Austrian painter is depicted so often as being, there's nothing satisfying about watching the fall of that person, right? So yeah, I think that's a really good archetype for the villain that you've got there. I'm very interested to see how it gets fleshed out and what the story arc is and everything like that. But yeah, there's definitely a kind of dearth of compelling villains, and definitely compelling villains, but also even compelling heroes and everything like that. It I guess it depends, like, what the plan is for the game or whatever, but it might be appropriate for some games for the protagonist to actually change over the course of the story as well. Like that's something that is certainly very good for, a movie or a novel and things like that. But that doesn't happen very often as well. Like, so often, like the characters are these like perfect, the Mary Sue type characters that just, they don't have any flaws. And so how are they going to change? They only change for the worse. So that they basically just sort of go through and they're kind of like an archetype or whatever. It's not as interesting. Whereas if you have a character that has like warts and everything like that, then, there's a little bit of room for growth, and the character can kind of like change over the course of the story. But that sounds really cool. I'm very much looking forward to that. And I've actually seen the trailers and you put up on your YouTube page that you did some actual demo like playing of the game, and it just looks awesome. Like I can't believe what you've done with, a small amount of capital and just a few guys that are working with you. That's, I have to hand it to you, even just like what's been accomplished so far. And it's not even fully there yet. It's just looking amazing so far.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't take all credit. The majority of the work was done by our lead developer, Fornall. So he's just, this. I have never not never, but there are few guys out there that have like his level of dedication. This guy put in thousands of hours of programming and labor to create this game, like thousands. A level of dedication and work for very, very little, like pretty much just, out of generosity. Now, shout out to Imperium Press. I mean, you guys, pretty much fund. Yeah, I bet you didn't fund the whole thing, but you guys made a donation that put us over and like made the thing happen. So this is kind of like a joint effort. It's like the Culture Dads, the publishing dads, made this happen. You know what I mean? So that's, shout out to you guys too. But yeah, Grimurth, this demo, for folks that are familiar with game development, this is something that would take an entire team, a studio that has a full team, like tens of thousands of dollars. The fact that we came out with something like this is pretty cool. So Yeah, I think now our approach to heroes with Grimurth as a whole, because it is an action RPG and we wanted it to have like retro vibes. There's not going to be a whole lot of hero development. You pick your hero. There's going to be like a little bit of a description on who and what they are, and they have there's voice actors. They're going to voice them. Like the barbarian is voiced by Arturi Kivella, and he says he goes, "Victory is ours," and like shit like that. But overall, the character is just you, right? And because of the nature of the game, and because of our limitations, and because we wanted to keep those constraints in order to make the game just like we were talking about, pop in, turn it on, play for a little bit, done. You don't got to dump your life into it. But we still wanted to have some really lively characters, pretty much, sort of, in a way. Necron is going to be the main character of the game. Like his theme, he is going to be fucking with you the whole game. Your whole job is going to have to go from realm to realm and knock off his generals before in the end you finally fight him. And it's going to be going to be something that's pretty tough. Necron is going to be a character that, and here's what I'm going to point this out. When we're like releasing stuff, when we're releasing Necron's design, guys are like, why is he so white? Why is he white? Why is he white? This is sounding like anti-white subversion or something. And that it's like, I can understand why guys have that reaction, but we need to not be poisoned by this like external stuff and realize that we can have internal worlds and characters. Why would we just place this like one character that's like not white in this would where everybody's European or like European inspired? You know what I mean? Like why would we have just like a random like Hispanic or Arab guy or black guy as the main villain? And also here's another thing that I put in. A lot of times people like the villain. You know what I mean? Why would you want to have a villain? What's the most memorable character of Final Fantasy VII? Sephiroth. Yeah. People love Sephiroth. You know what I mean? People love the bad guy a lot of times. So why would you want this memorable, powerful, awesome bad guy that you have to fight against to be like just this embodiment of like, I just don't want to play by the rules of these propagandists out there, these anti-white propagandists. I want to play by our own rules, have our own thing, and make all characters to be like reflections of us, good and bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is kind of a fuck you to just ignore, the others as well too, right? It'd just be like, this is our thing for us, and it concerns our people, and it's about our people, for us, by us, kind of thing. And I think it's kind of just knee jerk and like reactionary. I hate using that term in a derogatory way, but it's kind of reactionary, knee jerk, to just do the opposite. Just have the Costanza effect. Just do the opposite of what like the woke people are doing. That's not what we want to do. We want to do our own thing, right? Like we have our own worldview. We have our own creativity. We have our own everything. This is like our thing, right? We don't need to do what they do, but the mirror image. And one of the books that we've released that is you would think would be where that would be done is something like Thomas 777's Steel Storm that we put out, where it is a piece of sci-fi that he's written with sort of political themes underneath the surface. But I will stress they're underneath the surface. If you read this, it's not going to hit you over the head with like ideology. It's very much below, the subliminal level, right? Like the themes are in there, but it's not hitting you over the head with them artlessly the way that the other side is doing with their own propaganda. Like Grimurth doesn't need to be propaganda. It just needs to be a fun game that you can play. You could play for, hundreds of hours if you want, or you could just play it for a few dozen hours here and there, whatever, like it doesn't have to be a whole thing. It doesn't have to be your ideology instantiated into a video game. It's just fun. It's just entertaining stuff, right? Like, and it doesn't have to be. I agree. I think if you were to make the villain, a clear like ethnic, something that's clearly ethnic, it would just be kind of like, it would actually take you out of it in some ways. It would be like non-immersive. It would kind of like just be like, oh, that's that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's a solid decision to make Necron the villain, this like pale, sort of well-bred, archetypal character.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't. Why would you want to give the kind of power that Necron has to somebody else that, I don't know. And here's the thing, I'm not even like trying to like hate on like others. I play games where like everybody's Asian and everybody's whatever, and I think that they're cool games. And I think that, I don't know. I don't want to come off like these like Japanese people or these XYZ people are always have to be the bad guys or something like that. You know what I mean? Because, there's lots of cool games where people play as samurai, people play as, whatever. And I don't know. I just, or ancient Egypt or some shit. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I
leave the racial resentment to the other that don't know how to make good art.
Yeah, I don't want this to be any sort of resentment or propaganda. I just want this to be like a cool game that represents us, that's fun. And I think guys are going to think that this game is like, it is old school. It's a new game. It has like it has like the fluidity of a new game and stuff like that. But you are going to be feeling like you're playing some sort of old school game. The buttons are very, very simple. There's like, you have a dodge button, you have a basic attack button, and then you have 2 special attacks. And then that's it. And then on top of it, it's like there's just hordes of enemies that you have to fight through. We really just wanted to make a game that is like you do like one fun thing, right? It's like you run through the levels, there's puzzles, there's traps, there's kind of like this dungeon crawl feel to it, but pretty much your job is to kill maximum enemies. That's it. And use different strategies, and like you try to run guys away. The physics is really funny. It makes for a lot of like fucked up mishaps that are just like, you don't even see it coming. Like something will blow up and it'll just like launch you off the cliff face and you fall to your death. There's bridges that fall apart. There's traps that come out of nowhere, drop rocks on your head. There's no hand holding. It's like you go in, here are the buttons. Here are the places that you got to go. Good luck. And you just got to figure it out. And I don't know. I think it's going to be really fun. I think guys that play it are really going to enjoy themselves, especially once we add in multiplayer. We have.
I was just going to ask if it's going to be single or multiplayer.
It's going to be multiplayer. Our original vision was for it to be couch co-op, but it's originally going to be it's first going to go on computer, and not a lot of people are playing couch co-op with computer games. So we're going to make it online multiplayer. There's going to be 3 initial characters. You're going to be barbarian, archer, and wizard. And you pick one of these, and you can team up 1 to 3 players, and you go through, and it's going to be fun. It's very simple, straightforward stuff.
Well, that sounds awesome, man. And I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't played many games in quite a while, but I'll definitely get a copy of this one. And who knows? Maybe it'll touch off a renaissance for me. Maybe I'll get back into video games again. But at the very least, it's really promising to see it coming out of our spheres. And this is something that we've got to own, to kind of circle back to where we started. Video games are the biggest medium for entertainment going these days, and this is something that we can own, and if you're not hitting people over the head with ideology, and you're not sort of making it like transparently like this is the white nationalist video game or whatever, it could go far. This could really do something. So, however it does, it's a triumph. It's a triumph for us. It's a triumph for our sphere. And you've just got like limitless energy, Dave. I don't know how you do it. It's just, you got so many projects on the go at the same time. And, I'm a busy guy too. I like to stay busy, but I got to tip my hat to you. You definitely do it one better.
Thank you. Yeah, I just I really believe that it's time that because we've done a few things very, very well. We and for some reason I find that I don't even like to call this a movement or whatever, where this is like an enclave or an underground or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a scene.
It's a scene. It's like a subculture. We've done a few things really, really well, and unfortunately, I think that a lot of people they like to navel gaze and look up at things that we don't do well and keep trying to go for that while ignoring what we have and what we do. One thing that we do extremely well is publishing. You know what I mean? Like if you took all of the dissident and folkish publishers in between all of our spheres, I guarantee you it's $1 million industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably.
We move, all of us collectively move a lot of books. Yeah. The other thing we do well is art, right? The great meme war. That was an art movement. How else can you look at it? We were conveying messages through a visualization. You know what I mean?
There's definitely a folk art aspect to meming and the meme war and everything like that. And it's like we just have a way of communicating complicated ideas simply. That is something that that it's cliche that the left can't meme, right? Because it's a text wall. And I think, part of that is that their ideology is just so retarded that it needs a text wall for it to remotely make any sense. Like you can't boil it down to a sentence or two without it just being transparently stupid. We're a little bit different. Yeah, exactly. Like it's because it doesn't ring true. Ours does. So folk art is something that we can do. And I agree with that. We're very good at the visual presentation. We're very good at music. We're very good on aesthetics. We're very good on the publishing side of things. But video games is something that we haven't gotten into yet. And there's going to be some growing pains. With publishing, Imperium Press wasn't the first by any stretch. I mean, Countercurrents was 10 years before us or something like that. And obviously there's growing pains over the course of time. And, it like Grimurth looks like it's going to be fucking awesome right out of the gate. But, once that happens and, I'm sure it's going to be a success. It'll be great to see what comes sort of down the track. Who knows? Maybe you'll touch off a stampede, like we saw in about 2019, 2020 with the distant publishing industry, right? It was just all of a sudden there was all this stuff and it was just saturated. Hopefully it'll kind of go like that with video games in our scene as well. It would be great to see other guys jump in. I don't know anything about them, but I've heard because they're going to be on Millennial. There's Cult Games. Mm-hmm. That's the only other one I know of. But it's really cool to see that there are forays into this because, books are a much smaller medium than video games are. If we could really get a foothold in here, then this would be something. This would really be something for our scene.
Yeah, exactly. If we can, and here's the thing with anything. If you go years back to some of the first books that we came out with, I don't want to say that not me and you here, but as the underground. There's a few books that we came out at first. I don't want to say that they were stinky, but they weren't as good as they could have been. Right. Mm-hmm. Now we're putting out books that are Mike, I'm looking at. I got some of your books here on my desk. These are these are better than what you get from professional publishing companies. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, your Poetic Edda and your Beowulf, Penguin Random House doesn't make books as nice. It's when they got multi-million-dollar budgets. So it's going to be a little rough at first. The first games that come out that we make are probably going to be not as good as they could be, a little bit low budget. But we're going to. What's going to happen, and this is my prediction, is somebody's going to come out with a game that pops and escape our spheres and get some some people that are really into it outside of it. I don't want to say hit the normies, but hit like more adjacent spheres. And people are just going to like enjoy playing the game. And then it's going to be like, okay, well, we can get some clout and make some money. And like, there's some incentive to make base games. So let's all just start making games. And like you said, I think there's going to be a stampede. And my view is like, we just have to get the ball rolling on gaming, on tabletop gaming, and on film. And once we can spit out some stuff like that to like incentivize guys to get into it, dude, we're going to be like a core of cultural exporters. We are going to be exporting fresh culture like outward, and it's going to be based. That's my view of things.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're already doing that with books, and we're moving into other media as well. So, I mean, it's just a matter of time and making sure that the scene doesn't blow up with gay infighting. So, that's it'll be good to watch it develop as time goes on. I really do think that we'll reach a point where these all the different sort of sub cultures are going to be consolidated kind of into something a little bit more streamlined, and that's when we're going to really move the dial. But at the same time, that's going to be when the Eye of Sauron really looks our way. So there's challenges on the horizon too, but the fact that is coming is indicative of the fact that we're already making a difference, and hopefully we'll do that in video games as well. So yeah, it's good to have this episode, discuss the sort of nuts and bolts of like video game design and the philosophy behind games and everything, because a lot of people don't give it video games its due. It is a legitimate genre. It is a folk genre. It is an important part of living today. This is what's happening here and now. And you can bet that the Aryan steppe chieftain that like everybody lionizes was quite happy to live in his day too. So, this is part of what we're all about, is being oikophiliac. We're about loving what is near and what is close to us. What's close to us, what's culturally happening with us in our civilization is video games. So it's be ridiculous to discard that just because it's not old or something.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this, like, let's be honest, you grew up playing video games. Everybody that was born after, 1975 grew up playing video games. Kids aren't going to stop playing video games. People aren't going to stop playing video games. I guarantee you 90% of the guys that like Virtue Signal and Purity Spiral about video games are playing a little bit of video games on the sly and lying about it. I guarantee you that they're doing that. I always suspect like these like hardcore Purity Spiralers of like, they're just like, I don't know. I think that they're doing like, I don't drink any caffeine or smoke cigarettes, or I don't do anything. I'm just like Puritan and dog. I know that you probably, have a cigar once in a while. You probably drink beer. You probably, you're probably playing some vidya. You probably stopped at Wendy's for a single like last week because you were tired after work and you didn't feel like cooking. Let's be honest here. You fuck around in modern culture. Everybody does. You can't escape it. People are not going to stop playing video games, and it's just strategically bad, in my opinion, to ignore it. And also, like, let's not be prudes. They're fun, right? If you're not toxic about it, if it's not ruining your life, if you're not some hardcore gamer sitting in front of a screen for hours at a time and you dabble and play a little bit, dude, it's fun. It blows off some steam. Like, let's ease up and let's take these things more seriously. I think, in my opinion, that's just.
And if guys are going to play it, if that is a thing, which it unquestionably is, wouldn't it be better if guys are playing our games and then they don't have to be, just have their whole life stunk up with this like paused ideology? Wouldn't it be nice to have it so that guys can kind of escape that for a little while? I think so. I think that's something worth having.
Yeah, and also think like helping guys make a little bit of money and like expand this stuff, because you think about it, a game drops, everybody buys it. Say it's $20. Like, come on, if you're listening to this, you got $20 you could drop on a video game that these guys have. You know what I mean? You buy the game, play it, all this kind of stuff. And then eventually, it might start out a little bit rough. It might start out a little bit low budget. It might start out not as good as it could be. But in a few years, if it gets the support that it deserves, we're going to be pumping out stuff that is like what Imperium Press is doing with their books, right? It's going to be just as good as Activision and Ubisoft and Bethesda, etc. So it's got to start somewhere. Might as well start now and support it and see where it goes.
Hell yeah. Well, I can't wait to see where it does go.
Hell yeah. All right, Mr. Mike, we're coming up on 2 hours. So you have anything closing you want to say? You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. I think that it was a good discussion. Video games are an important thing in our sphere, or should be an important thing in our sphere. So yeah, no, let's close it out.
All right. So you guys, hails and blessings to you. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season, Yuletide season, Christmas season. And I hope your families are doing well, and I hope you have big feasts ahead of you, lots of delicious food wherever you might be in the world. So love and blessings to each and every one of you guys and your families. And thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Culture Dads Age of Sword and Cassette. If you're not signed up already, which I know you are, but if you're not, just in case, go over to imperiumpress.org/podcasts and go follow the links. Sign up to the Gumroad. You get access to all Culture Dads. You get Imperium Cast. You get hardback books. Depending on which tier you get, there's great stuff over there. So go sign up. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us become anti-fragile. It helps Imperium Press fulfill their destiny of becoming this absolute awesome institution that they were born to be. So go over, sign up, check it out, support it, buy books, buy merch. Hey, Mike's got some dope merch out right now, bro. Go get some merch. Go get it. You had something to say, Mike?
No. I was, okay. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, he's unmuted. So go get some merch. Go get some stuff. You want to check out what I'm doing? Go to thebizarchives.com. Follow us on Twitter and Telegram at The Bizarchives. Guys, holidays coming up. Dude, I got a sale going on. Coupon code YULE, all caps, YULE, 10% off. Go buy books from Mike. Buy books. We got awesome books that you can fill your stockings with, give to your loved ones. Whatever you want, we got it. So go over and grab some of that stuff. And I'll see you guys next time on Culture Dads Age